She probably... Well, I'll tell you what, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mark. Man of the hour. You got that elevator running again. All right, that's a good idea. Okay. Like I said, this is a regularly scheduled November 24th business meeting for the city of Port Orchard. And we're at the citizens' comment portion of the night. And I would like to remind citizens that they have two opportunities at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. We have one, Miss Bailey.
Oh, Mayor, I'm sorry to interject. Do we want to swear in the council member-elect
you're
first?
right. You're right. I hand penciled that in, then I just went right past it. So I would like to introduce our city clerk, Clerk Reinerson, and she is going to tell us what's next.
Okay. So I'm going to ask council member-elect Kuchardi to step down here maybe by the podium, and then I will ask his officiator, which is Judge Jans, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correct as well, to come up to the podium, and the judge is going to administer the council member-elect's oath of office.
Please raise your right hand to be sworn. I, Sean Kuchardi, do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States and of the state of Washington, that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington, and will, to the best of my judgment, skill, and ability, truly, faithfully, diligently, and impartially perform the duties of the office of City of Port Orchard Council Position Number 1 in and for Kitsap County, Washington, as such duties are prescribed by law. Congratulations. Please.
Welcome. Okay. Now we have citizens' comments. Miss Bailey.
Well, the last time we tried to get the vote, I was quite surprised to hear the first comment about a 31% discount, which I had seen nor heard nothing of. And then there was no time for citizens' comments afterwards, so I went home wondering, called the water utility office the next day, and was told about this low usage discount, or whatever it's being called, low consumption. It's not a senior discount, but it's some low consumption that if you don't use the minimum that you're being charged for, you're going to get a 31% discount for that 2-month period. That was rather interesting to me because we are big water conservers. And she looked over the past year, and every bi-monthly bill, we would have fallen in that category, below the minimum usage, except the 1 month when we had the water hose bust in the front yard. But now I read through the ordinance as quickly as I could here, and I don't see that anywhere. And so I don't know where it's at, and I don't really know how it's going to be applied. And is the minimum usage that I'm on right now still going to be the minimum usage after January 1st? That's my questions. Now, I'll leave that for Francis. Something came up earlier in another organization that I was in that did the pledge, and we noted very easily that the phrase, "one nation under God," does not have a comma in the middle of it. It's not one nation under God, it's one nation under God. I stand out in every pledge I do because I don't pause, but I can deal with that. Next, are our council members not also required to be residents of the city of Port Orchard? Oh, because the oath kind of bounced everything down, but it never got to that level. Okay. That was my big question with this. Do I get any answers?
Well, I don't know the answer myself.
Did I hear that right last meeting?
It's actually 34%. And it's
34%.
And it's built
That's
into the
even
rate
better.
structure, correct, Mr. Dorsey?
Yeah, I mean, that's my understanding, is the rate structure had that initial tier in the old code. In the revised, we're still maintaining that first tier, but then we're separating the next three tiers to provide even more discount. So
That was the statement from Katie Isaacson's
Right.
presentation, who's our water consultant.
But that 34% was never discussed before this previous meeting from my recollection.
Yes, it was.
it was at the presentation at the work study, yeah.
And at the public hearing here, the first
Right.
one.
Okay. I did notice that, of course, the last meeting, the comments were made about not much publication, and we're usually represented by the newspaper here, but since that last meeting and the delay of the vote, I really expected there would have been something in the paper about that and about this meeting, but there was nothing. But I am glad to see it looks like the full council is here.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Two things. The residential parking permit. 4 residential parking permits per residence seems excessive to me. We're taking up our city parking for residential purposes, and I would think that 2 vehicles per residence would be an average, but four residences seems excessive. And item 7A, the second meeting at the Pancake House with the Utilities Committee, Katie Isaacson said that the size of the UGA would have an impact on rates. Just want to say it for the public because it seemed to be a point of contention last time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Like I said, there's an opportunity into the meeting, but if you, yes, please.
Jerry Harmon. I've said it over and over, but I still want you to consider on the sewer rates that you renegotiate something besides ERUs. It's a very unfair system for a lot of people, and it should be based on consumption of water or a percentage of the consumption of water if you think people are going to regret the 100% because they're putting it on their yards or something like that. I just find it, there's no response from any of you, and I've heard the saying that you don't comment, but ERUs are not fair to a lot of people in this community. They're fair, and it should be at least looked into. Just because you have a contract, you can go back and renegotiate with West Sound, but nobody seems to even give a blank about it. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments? Anyone else at this time? Okay, we'll move on then to approval of the agenda.
Move
Yes,
to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussions, comments? Seeing none, then we'll be approving the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries. We're on item 4, consent agenda.
Mayor, move we approve the consent agenda as published.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as published. Any questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as published say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Item 5, presentation. Once again, Kitsap Economic Development Alliance, Mr. Powers has asked to be rescheduled till December 8th, and he says that he'll be raring to go then, and so that we're going to postpone that one till the next month. And we're at item 6, public hearing. There isn't any public hearing scheduled, so we'll move right on to business item 7A. And Mr. Dorsey, would you tell us about business item 7A, please?
So on November 10th, the second reading on the adoption of an ordinance amending Municipal Code 1304 was held. Council moved to continue the agenda item to the November 24, 2015, when a full council would be present to vote on the ordinance. As a summary, at the November 10th, 2000 meeting, Public Works Director Dorsey noted, on March 25th, 2014, the City of Port Orchard approved Contract 03314 with Katie Isaacson and Associates to prepare the 2014-50 water gap analysis. The purpose of the analysis to be prepared in coordination with the 2015 Comprehensive Plan updates for water and sanitary sewer was to develop a financial plan and 6-year rate outlook for funding utility operations, debt repayment, and capital improvements, with the output being the impact on rates to complete the identified water and sanitary sewer programs. Over the course of 19 months, numerous revisions, redirection, and several public meetings, a PowerPoint presentation of the proposed 2015 water and sanitary sewer rates were presented by Ms. Katie Isaacson on October 27, 2015. Along with the proposed rate increases for water and sanitary sewer, amendments to Municipal Code 1304 will also be required. This matter was continued to the November 10th, 2015 council meeting to tonight's meeting. The motion on the floor is Councilmember Patonsu moved and Councilmember Ashby seconded to adopt ordinance 020-15, thereby increasing both water and sanitary sewer rates, approving amendments to POMC 1304, and to be made effective January 1, 2016. Staff recommends adoption of ordinance 020-15, thereby increasing both water and sanitary sewer rates, approving amendments to Municipal Code 1304 attached, and to be made effective January 1, 2016.
All right, thank you. Now, this was a continuation of discussion and then ultimately motion to discuss and vote on this. So we're at the discussion period, so what's your pleasure, Council? Yes, Mr. Chang.
I would actually like to propose an amendment, and I propose that we direct the utility billing staff to include additional communication to customers, including the following points. One would be a brief summary of the study rate-setting process, where the revenue will go, including the projects to be funded. Second would be providing the website for additional information, including the summary and the water sewer gap study. Thirdly would be a phone number to request a hard copy of this summary. Fourth would be information about Kitsap community resources or other resources for utility bill assistance. And additionally, I would like to direct staff, the amendment is to direct staff to send a postcard after passage of this ordinance with contacts for additional information, and also direct staff to include a letter or flyer with the above information to go in the next utility bill and the first bill for each rate increase in subsequent years.
All right. I was trying to keep up with you, but if you'd let me read your note there, or if you have a copy for me, it'd be much easier because your amendment is.
Well, that's the motion that I'm proposing to
You're-
amend the motion.
You want to amend the motion.
Amend the motion to
that we're
include
discussing
this.
right now. Is that
He's making a motion to include,
right?
and that's the way I understood it.
Well, Brandy, we can address this.
So Councilmember Chang made a motion, so we just need a second to continue
Right.
continue the discussion of his motion. So is there a second?
Discussion, or I mean, a second. Any second. That motion then dies from lack of a second. And we're back to the main motion, as Mr. Dorsey read into the record. Discussion.
I just, this is not a motion, but I just wanted to see if staff could, I know we have on the website right now information on how to conserve water, and I'm wondering if we can have that not only on the website, but perhaps have some sort of flyer or hard copy available to people. I'm thinking in terms of a pamphlet, this is how you conserve water, or a flyer or some sort of communication in the water billing, directing people onto how they can conserve water, or directing them to the website that has the information on it.
Yeah, the current, or the billing that went out directed people to the website, and on the front of the website had a link to the water sewer gap analysis and to the drought / conservation article that Thomas Hunter wrote. So I guess is that not adequate?
But no,
or?
This is what my concern is. When people get their water bill, their water sewer bill, they're going to realize the rates have increased. And with that, those actions have already taken place. Now, I would like to see the city offer them ideas on how they can conserve their water and therefore reduce their monthly billing.
It's my understanding we have a number of characters available in a text body in the bill, correct?
Well, right. We have it on the website right now. It's just directing them to the website.
What I'm referring to is on our bill, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Martin, we have a certain amount of text. We could direct them to the website for information on water conservation, visit, blah, blah, blah. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
But are you not also concerned about the people who don't have web access, who might want a hard copy?
That's why I suggested we could perhaps
Print,
also
right.
put something in print. They could call the city, and we would have, we have a,
Okay, or website or call and a phone
right,
number.
because we have that placard out in front of the utility billing area where we could put some information.
The answer to Councilman Mayor-elect Patonsu is yes, there is the box that we access to communicate with customers, and I believe that it's noticed. But what I would suggest is that Mark and I look through the various water associations and see if there's an existing brochure template we could get a hold of on water conservation. And if you give us some time, we could look for that and see if there was a insert that we could put into the water billing that might make sense rather than reinventing the wheel, if that would be something that you would like us to pursue.
Mr. Clausen?
I think you just answered my question. It's my understanding we can actually put an insert in the billing.
Well, we have to send it to Spokane, and they
Correct.
put it in, and if we can get it in PDF format, they'll print it for us.
Yeah, so we could have something bigger than just a block on the billing.
Fine with either.
So,
Well, I think it'd be good to put it in the bill. That would save somebody from calling and/or going to the website as well.
well, I think the best thing we could do is see what we can come up for something and share with you and get direction from you all. I see Mark's enthusiasm. Say yes.
Yes.
So maybe in the short run, we put it on the bill, and then later we follow up with some sort of.
Yeah, the bills were printed yesterday, so that original message that we had on there before is still on there. So we had our deadline yesterday afternoon to print, so our first opportunity will be in 30 days.
Other comments? Yes.
Well, this is something that none of us want to do, and I know what we're all trying to do is to soften the blow, but we can't soften the blow. It's we have this fiduciary responsibility to keep the utility solvent and running on its own. The funds of the city can't be commingled with the utility, and it's the people's utility. It's not ours. It's just all of our utility, and we've tried to hold the rates down. We've neglected capital projects in the past, and now we're just in a predicament. And we need to deal with these projects. Well 10, I mean, there's just so much we need to do. And frankly, we should take a little bit of the blame for having let it come to this point. We probably should not have, in the past, tried to hold the rates down. We probably should have been dealing a little more upfront with the issues. Even if it's painful, we have to move ahead. And frankly, the capital projects we have that we're going to deal with are not even all the projects. I mean, this isn't even what it could have been. That doesn't make anybody happy. It doesn't make me happy, but it's the fact. So, I mean, I'm going to vote for this, and it's distasteful to me to have to vote for a raise like this. However, it's my job to do it.
Is there any other discussion or comments or questions? All right, seeing none, then we're going to be voting to adopt ordinance 020-15, hereby increasing both water and sanitary sewer rates, approving amendment to Port Orchard Municipal Code 1304 to be made effective January 1st, 2016. All those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
No.
Show Mr. Chang votes no. That motion carries. We're on item 7B. Mr. Bond, could you lead us into this one? Tell us about it, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of council. The city has recently received a petition to vacate a portion of street subject to the non-user statute. The city's current street vacation ordinance does not address non-user statute vacations. In addition, the current chapter 12.08 includes a street vacation process that is incomplete. The city attorney has drafted an ordinance to revise Chapter 12.08 to ensure that the city's street vacation process is consistent with state law. The Public Properties Committee has reviewed the proposed ordinance and on November 9, 2015 recommended that it be brought to the full City Council for consideration. The staff recommendation is to approve the street vacation ordinance as presented so that the petition that has been received by the city, which is subject to the non-user statute, can be processed.
Okay, council, yes, Ms. Ashby.
I move to adopt the proposed ordinance amending and repealing portions of Port Orchard Municipal Code 12-12.08 concerning street vacations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Open the floor for discussion and comments. Discussion and comments from anyone?
No, this was discussed at Public Properties, and I think we looked at it over a couple of meetings, and that committee moved it forward. We were comfortable with the language, and there was a bit of a time, we needed to do it expeditiously because there is a street vacation petition pending.
Beck, are you free to say which street vacation petition?
I have not seen it. I don't know. It was just brought to our attention that there was one.
And portion of Dwight.
All right, any other comments or discussion before we vote? Okay, seeing none, we're going to be voting on adopting proposed ordinance, amending and repealing portions of POMC 1208 concerning street vacations. All those in favor of the motion on the floor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Let the motion, or the record show that there's one Councilwoman Lucarelli in opposition. That motion carries. Okay. Item 7C, Clerk Reinerson.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council. So in review of Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 10.14, Residential Parking Permit Systems, was noticed that the permits are getting ready to expire December 31st, 2015. After further review of the code, staff determined additional changes were needed. In collaboration with the Police Chief and the Public Properties Committee over the last 3 months, the following changes to the code are recommended by staff. Proposed changes to update the purpose and definitions include a inclusion of the permit issuance process, reduce the number of residential parking permits from unlimited to 4 per resident, reduce the length of time from 5 years to 2 years, apply a administrative processing fee, which will be set in a fee scheduled resolution adopted by the City Council by the end of the year. I believe staff is prepared to set those fees through a cost analysis and bring forward to you at the December 8th meeting. And the proposed fee is $10 per permit and $5 for a replacement permit. In addition, remove the section of the code that addresses community event parking permit, as records indicate that the use for this permit is no longer needed. Clarified the permit revocation and appeal process, removed the violation penalty from being a misdemeanor to a Class 2 civil infraction. Staff recommends adopting the ordinance as presented. And a red line version of the code has been provided to you, and a clean version of the ordinance. I'd be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
I move to adopt an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 10.04, Residential Parking Permit System.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll open the floor now for discussions, comments, or questions.
I know
Mr.
this
Thompson.
was vetted to the Public Property Committee, and I think 4 is a good start from unlimited, but I think Mr. Whittleton brings a good point up. 4 is still a lot. If every citizen in our city had 4, we could fit all the cars on the street. So was there any discussion at that Public Properties?
Brandy may want to answer that. What I'm remembering is that was a number that came forth through the city clerk and the police chief.
Yeah, we just had a conversation, looked at other codes in the area of other jurisdictions, and that's what they had. We also looked to see what the number of permits, and the average was 2 to 3. So we just thought 4 was comfortable, better than unlimited. But that number can be reduced to any number that the council wishes to set.
I don't recall much discussion on the number, and I'd be comfortable with 3, actually.
I would too. So I propose an amendment, actually, to limit that to 3 parking permits per household.
Did somebody come forward with a complaint about the residential parking permit situation? I know it's expiring, but it's like somebody's jumped into this and kind of rewrote it and changed things, added fees, changing numbers. Did somebody complain?
Not from the citizens, but when the police chief and I sat down with the parking enforcement officers, they wanted this opportunity to look and review the code. That's pretty much what brought it forward.
Well, I kind of think that I'm not a fan of taxes, but I'm not a fan of more rules and more regulations for the sake of rules and regulations. And it's kind of minor, in my opinion, it's kind of minor processing to be adding a fee to the folks that are, as we're hearing, are getting hit in every which way. So I don't think I'm going to vote for this, but I know that you guys all seem to like it, so that's fine.
And I can address the fee portion where when we came to draft the ordinance, we had it reviewed by legal counsel, and it's my understanding, and maybe she can elaborate, which our CW it applies to, but when the city is issuing a permit, we're required to have a processing fee. So that's what the $10 and the $5 is. It goes towards the cost for the staff to process the permit, as well as the cost to actually purchase the permits. So we're just getting reimbursed for the fees. But I think the cost analysis came to, I think it was $9 and some change. So we just did easy numbers and rounded it to 10. So that's how the fee came up.
Brandy, will these stickers be better quality than the last ones? Faded out and didn't last very well.
And actually, to answer Councilmember Child's question about complaints, one thing that we do, the number one complaint that we do get is the quality of our stickers, or that they fade or they peel off. And then the other one is that they don't want it to put a sticker on their brand new vehicle. And so we accommodate that. What we are now doing is it's more of a window cling, and it goes into their windows instead of on their actual vehicle, and it is a better quality. So we got samples, not we tested it out, but we have samples. We've seen the quality of it. We asked, the police department, parking enforcement, to see if it's visible for them, and they agreed.
So it'll go on the inside of a window then?
Correct.
What about a car with a tinted window?
They're just going to have to make sure it's visible. We can put that in our instructions to ask them when they fill out the permit to see if they have tinted windows, and we can work with the parking enforcement to see what the alternative is for them to place it on the outside of their vehicle or somewhere within their vehicle so they can check it.
That front windshield shouldn't be tinted, so that could be an option.
But I think they go on the back.
Always on the back.
Rear corner, usually.
Could they go in the front?
You reduce visibility.
We can adjust the code to say that it just needs to be visible and take out that a specific spot. We can just say that the parking permit needs to be visible outside of the vehicle and leave it at
From an
that.
enforcement standpoint, though, they're driving up from behind the vehicle.
How about
and-
saying invisible for inspection purposes by the parking enforcement officer?
From the rear.
But I do have one more question. In one of these sections, it says parking permits allow a vehicle to park within 1 block, right? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
1 block radius on the streets with posted restrictions. Now, I was wondering, within 1 block of what?
Has to be within 1 block of their residence.
Shouldn't you say that?
I will make sure it's clear.
Because, 1 block of the theater, maybe? 1 block of John's house?
Yes, so the word, vehicle to park within 1 block radius of the residence.
Good point.
One thing that I think we didn't communicate to Jerry, because I understand what you're saying about additional enforcement, is that with the 5-year window, we found that a lot of people were moving, and people who'd moved were still parking illegally with the sticker they had. I don't know how many
That's why it went
instances.
to 2?
That was one reason it moved from 5 to 2, since people were moving. I didn't catch that it was a cling because I didn't have a problem with the sticker on my bumper.
That's where mine is.
I wish we could have a combination cling or sticker. You could put it on either location if they can do that.
Mr. Mayor, question. Brandy, did I understand you correctly to say when you reviewed the current system that the average was 3 to 4 vehicles, or 2 to 3?
2 to 3.
The average was 2 to 3. We have, I believe, 2 separate residents that have approximately 6 to 8 vehicles registered to that resident. So we're trying to reduce that, but the average was 2 to 3.
My concern with the proposed amendment of going 3, if the average is 3, then that means you're going to have a fair number that's going to be over 3. So 6, I think, is a bit excessive, but, what's the difference between 3 or 4? And I think the ordinance calls out for 4 now. So
It's unlimited before.
So are we ready to make
So can I interject? I know that Councilmember Patanzo made a motion, and I didn't hear a second.
I'll second
on
it.
his amendment.
I'll second it now.
Okay. All right, so there's a second. So we're discussing the change from 4 to 3, or 3 to 4, whichever way. It's written in the proposed code now that there's 4 allowed, and the amendment was to make that 4-3. So Any more discussion? We've heard several comments.
Excuse me, Mayor, could I read off the changes that I think I heard? There are three of them. This is to Section 3 of the ordinance, which amends Section 10.14.030, subsection 2E, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I heard the council say. Language should be changed so that it would say, parking permits allow the owner of a vehicle to park within a 1-block radius of the owner's residence on streets with posted restrictions. Permits do not guarantee or reserve a certain parking space on the street. Then an amendment to subsection 2G, which would be to eliminate the first sentence, which is permits are to be fixed on the lower exterior back window of the driver's left side of the vehicle. That would be omitted, and the second sentence would be amended to read, permits must be visible from the outside of the vehicle to approaching parking enforcement officers. And then subsection 3C would read, the maximum number of permits are limited to no more than 3 per residential address.
Was that the intent that all of those that were just read into the record were part of the amendment? I was under the impression we were just dealing with the number of parking places.
That's what I heard. The amendment was just the number of parking spaces. I'd rather keep them separate.
Okay.
Yeah, so, okay, then let's deal with 2 or 3. I mean, 3 or 4. 4 is written or amended to 3. Any other comments? All those in favor of the 4 as written or as
The motion,
All those in favor of reducing it to 3?
3.
Okay, all right. All those in favor of reducing it to 3, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
no.
We better see a show of hands. I'm pretty sure I know what, it was just 2. All those in favor of the motion, raise their hand, please. Okay. Do you need to take a count? So, all right.
Thank you.
All opposed, raise your hand. Thank you. That motion carries. Okay, now we've changed that. Was it 3?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to,
It's a motion on the floor.
I'm going to amend
Oh, okay.
the motion that's on the floor to include the verbiage that the city attorney just read into the record.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to include what the city attorney read into the record except for the number of parking places.
Correct.
And,
She mentioned the number of parking places,
right, that would,
But we've already dealt with that, so
so accept that.
is
Okay.
that your intent, is to do everything except for the change to the number?
does that work for that?
I'm sorry?
Is that work for you?
Yes, I believe I understand the motion to have the motion to amend to address the language addressed by the attorney regarding the 1-block radius of their home, and to include the language read by the attorney regarding the permit being visible to the parking enforcement officer. That's the 2 items on this motion that you guys are discussing.
Okay. Everybody in agreement? Discussion? Other comments?
Is there a second to my motion? Oh, Sean's second.
Discussion, other comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Okay, that motion to amend is passes. So now we're back to the main motion.
I have a question for Brandy. Whatever the limit of vehicles that we allow, is there some sort of appeal process if somebody does want to ask for an additional one? Was it a higher fee, or was there?
No.
It's 3. Appeal process.
Well, I'm just wondering if in the few cases where someone may need more than 3, if we want to have a mechanism to grant them that, and if we want to charge them the same amount of money or maybe an additional fee just because they have.
My concern with that is then it becomes subjective. You know, no different than the RV thing we used to deal with where, you know, what is the process? And then you're having to get your neighbors to say it's okay, and then how do you tell your neighbors no? And, if we're gonna make it 3, you're gonna make it 4.
I think the one thing that Mr. Chang pointed out, though, is you could deal with it with a fee.
Yeah.
The $10 is up to 3. Anything over that, whatever number you want for additional permits, and then it's not subjective if somebody's willing to buy the additional permits.
I guess define a process would be my.
I guess staff's recommendation would, if somebody expresses a hardship or a concern with the limit of 3, and they want to propose a 4th permit, I'd be happy to bring that before the council for you guys to make a decision as to what the process you want that to be. What's the criteria that you want to allow that 4th permit? And we can address it at that time if you wish.
I would really prefer we not have a process that somebody comes at the
I think we're
council
getting
to ask
in
for
the
the
weeds
4th
here.
permit. We should have a system in place that could be administered and not need to come here.
Correct.
So if that wants to go back to the committee that's reviewed this, and they could research options and come back, we can modify it then.
I like that.
Beck, doesn't it defeat the purpose of what this is also trying to accomplish in that some households are abusing the parking privilege, per se, and that makes it difficult for the other people on the street? I mean, is that part of it? Did you have a complaint? Someone said that there are 6 vehicles for some places.
No, when this came before Public Properties, it did not come in the form of a complaint. It came in with the recommendation from the city clerk and the police chief that they wanted these revised for enforcement purposes. And we reviewed it a couple of months. And that the number we had looked at 4, and that seemed reasonable. Council has decided to make that 3, and we're talking a 1-block radius around their home. That was not, as Fred said, we didn't discuss the number at length. It just seemed like a reasonable number, and council's decided to reduce it. So, I personally am not particularly supportive of allowing people to buy more on an unlimited basis, because it sounds like that's what we're doing. Mm-hmm. I would concur with Mr. Clausen, and I would be inclined to pass the ordinance that we have in front of us and then take it back through the Public Property Committee again for any revisions that we may think we need. But we do have our current ordinance expiring at the end of the year. So.
Okay,
I think if
we're working on the amended main motion, and that was the one that included reduction from 4 to 3, 1-block radius, and visible. Those are the changes, and those parts plus the document we have is what we're going to be voting on or discussing right now. So
what I heard from Beck and from John is potentially this would go back to Public Properties, and there could be, I wouldn't support either a unlimited number at X fee, but if a 4th for potentially a higher fee, and you guys come up with a policy or procedure that's administrative versus coming back to this body, not case by case. Is that what I was hearing?
That's what I would propose. If there's a concern about not having an appeal of just the 3, then that committee could look at and come back with a suggestion of how to deal with it, whether it's charge for additional permits or come up with some other process that somebody could go through. Then at least you address those issues.
I think it would be a good topic for the committee because we didn't address the implications. I would also be not only whatever the fee would be, but the criteria. We'd have to determine if that street could handle a 4th vehicle from that house. So I can see where a policy would be better than having it come to council each time.
Well, and I think it would be, worthwhile to review that number 3 to see if maybe that's something that needs to be adjusted. I think we just kind of arbitrarily picked a number without a basis for it. So maybe you folks in the committee could study that a little more. Maybe we don't need an appeal process, but
Since we're kind of down in the weeds a little bit, I'd like to get in on it. The block, I'm kind of the champion of the block right now. Is it one block from where your house is on the block? So is it you're entitled to one block, and if you live in the middle of the block, are you entitled to up to the corner and then halfway up to the next block? Or are you entitled to, and then what if that's a big block, like in my case, to the right is a short block, because I'm not actually on the corner. So would I get that short block, but then on the big block that's the other way, would I get halfway up the big block?
Would assume so. The one block radius, from
Something
what
you're talking
I
about.
understand, so if you wanted to, you don't have to be on Kitsap, you could be on Kitsap and Sydney if you want, within that little
Yeah.
corner block. I just think that they don't want you to park on Kitsap, or excuse me, live on Kitsap and park on Ada Street. That's kind of the intent, or they don't want you to park on Robert Geiger.
So if your house is on an alley and your vehicles are more often in the alley, does that entitle you to park on the block that intersects with the alley?
I would assume the block is based on the door entry or your street address. So if your street address is on the front street.
That's why I'm not too in favor of all these rules. Because here we go. Anyway, enough of me.
More discussion, comments, question? All right, then the main amended motion is from 4 to 3, one block radius and visible. And then as written otherwise, all those in favor of the motion?
Main motion now?
Yes.
Main motion.
Okay.
Main amended motion.
Okay, main amendment.
All those in favor of the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Let the record show there's one in opposition. That motion carries. Now I would suggest that you make a decision that you send this back to council.
I was just going to offer a motion that this ordinance be taken to the Public Properties Committee. Was that the one? For review and recommendations back to the council.
Second that.
Okay, motion is second. Any other discussion?
Well, my question on that is, do you have a time frame that you would like that done in?
I don't know your agenda or your workload, but as soon as possible.
As soon as possible. I mean, we can't.
Or the end of the year?
Probably not.
I mean, we have a new ordinance that we're going to implement January 1, so if we need to make tweaks to it, the sooner the better.
Next year. In the next year?
Next year.
Any other comments or questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, that motion carries. Business item 7D. Mr. Martin, could you tell us about this one, please?
Thank you, Mayor Mathis, members of the Port Orchard City Council, citizens of Port Orchard. This is the first reading of an ordinance amending the 2015 budget. Actions involving amendments to the budget take 2 readings. This is the first reading of an ordinance amending ordinance number 2014 adopting the 2015 budget. The public may comment on the amendment following its presentation. The city budget is written to capture revenue expense over the fiscal year. During the year, changes to the budget in both revenue and expenditure need to be recognized by budget amendment. Ordinance number 515, 1015, and 815 recognize changes to the budget in the first part of the year. This budget amendment recognizes changes during the second half of 2015. This budget amendment ordinance reflects the following: $137,000 for prisoner boarding expenses from current expense fund number 001, $34,000 for prisoner medical expenses from current expense fund number 001, a transfer of $80,000 from water sewer utility fund number 401 to the water sewer cumulative reserve number 403 for capital facilities charges collected as a portion of the water sewer rate. $164,000 from water sewer utility fund number 401 for purchased water due to well number 6 and well number 9 being offline at times. and $120,000 additional retail sales and use tax collected by the city to current expense fund number 001. The Finance Committee recommends moving the ordinance amending the 2015 budget forward for a second reading. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
I move to accept the first reading of the ordinance amending the 2015 budget for the City of Port Orchard and to direct staff to place the ordinance on the December 8th, 2015 agenda for second reading and final adoption.
Second.
Continue. Do I have to read the rest?
No.
Yes.
Do you want to read the rest?
I mean, all 5 bullet points?
Yes. No? Okay.
No, I think you just read the motion, and he just read the bullet points. So. But I haven't heard a second.
I made a second.
Okay. There's a second. Now we're open to the floor for discussion, comments, and suggestions that we read everything, if that's what you want. Yes.
Just, Mr. Dorsey, that 160 from, is that additional water on top of what we'd already budgeted to buy from Bremerton?
Yeah, we have the,
Because I thought we budgeted an amount to buy from Bremerton, so we bought another 160?
we budgeted what we had in the 2015 budget, and this is what's in addition to that amount.
Wow.
That was based on that new rate. And that came mid-year, so we're budgeting more for 16.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
I know that Treasurer Martin had opened the discussion up for the public to comment, and I didn't know if you want to hear the comments from the public first before you make the motion. You got to give them the opportunity to. Is that correct? We need to have the public have the opportunity.
Yes,
to
we
comment
should
on
have
the
done
budget
that, but
amendment.
we already have a motion, right?
So we can accept public comment before we vote.
At this point in time, if you have some comments on this particular subject, please raise your hand and come up and make your comments to the council. Last chance? Okay, thank you. All right, more discussion? More questions? All right, the motion then, a motion is to move and accept first reading of ordinance amending the 2015 budget to City of Port Orchard to direct staff to place an ordinance on the December 8th, 2015 agenda for second reading and final adoption. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you, that motion carries. Okay, we're at business item 7E. Mr. Martin, could you tell us about this one, please?
Thank you, Mayor Mathis, members of the Port Orchard City Council, citizens of Port Orchard. This is a ordinance adopting, or resolution, excuse me, setting the amount of property taxes to be levied for the year 2016. On October 13th, 2015, a public hearing on revenue sources for the current expense general fund budget was held. The hearing included a presentation and discussion on property tax considered for collection in 2016. Below is a comparison of next year's levy amount to this year's levy amount. State law establishes maximum levy rates for the various types of taxing districts. Total City of Port Orchard 2016 property tax amount is estimated to be $2,458,021, based upon an estimated maximum $1.75 per thousand of current total assessed value of $1,404,584,517. The 2016 amount is estimated until the final levy calculation is completed by the Kitsap County Assessor. Projected 2016 levy rate of $1.75 calculates a tax of $393.75 on a house assessed value of $225,000. The Council Finance Committee recommends approval of this resolution. Thank you.
What's your pleasure, council? Yes.
I'll make the motion. I move to adopt a resolution setting the 2016 property tax levy and the amount of property taxes to be raised for the budget year of 2016.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and that opens the floor for discussions or comments.
I can't see voting for this. We have just raised utility rates, we have parking rates, we've got waste management rates. That's not something we are directly charging. The fire levy, school levy. We've got so many rate increases coming down the pike, and I cannot see that we can justify this. So I will be voting no.
Other comments, other discussion? Mr. Chang.
A question for the treasurer. I'm afraid that I missed your presentation on revenue because I don't remember hearing that our increase was going to be 3.4%, where last year it was 1%. Are we allowed the 3.484% because the other taxing entities didn't take theirs? Or what changed over last year?
Well, there's a lot in that question, but let me try to answer it. I think what you're referring to is the $81,016. That was originally estimated in the presentation earlier. I think it was at about 2.52%. That was the presentation back on October 13th. That has been revised by the county assessor to the 3.484%. But what you're referring to, I believe, is the 1% property tax rate, that it can't go up. And that's true. It cannot go up greater than 1% or the implicit price deflator, what is ever less, unless you pass a substantial need greater than 1% of the highest allowable levy. But the $81,016 is not the levy. The levy is the number where it says 2016 levy. The $81,000 is the tax rate. In other words, to get back to what you said, it is the difference based on that $1.75 per thousand. Now, our highest allowable levy is $2,623,160. So over time, as the assessed value of the city's property recovers from the downturn, you will be able to take that tax rate up to the highest allowable levy, which is about $200,000 from where we are today. When you reach that amount, then you will be capped at the 1% levy cap. Is ever unless you pass a substantial need levy. Now, that is probably fairly clear, and the simplest way to put it is when the pie gets larger, your slice gets larger.
Okay, I appreciate that.
So,
I do have a follow-up question, which is, we state the projected 2016 levy rate of 175 equals. Do you happen to know what the equivalent 2015 rate was? Were we charging the same per house of $393.75 or $1.75?
I think that it came out to around $1.73, but that's just off the top of my head. But then again, the pie was smaller.
Okay.
So as the pie's bigger, the rate can go down. It's algebraic. And so when one number goes down, the other one goes up, as long as you don't meet the statutory cap that's set forth in the state law.
Okay. That makes me feel a little more comfortable if we're comparing a 1.75 rate versus 1.73 for last year, where it's essentially a 2-cent differential, if that's the right term.
Yeah.
As opposed to 175 over nothing last year. So
the pressure. The pressure over time is going to be raising to that highest allowable levy. That's just going to happen naturally, mathematically, I should say. And then the other thing that's going to be is someday the fire district and the library will be at their maximum allowed levy, which will have our maximum legal amount left would be $1.60 per thousand. So that's all part of the equation that over time is going to play out, I suspect, if times stay good. And we hope that they do.
Question? Yes. Hey, Alan, in the past, we've talked about banked capacity.
Mhm.
Is the number, the 3.484, is it 1% plus 2.484 banked?
Not
Taking any banked capacity here?
not in the defined term that you're using, bank capacity. The city has not passed up capacity and banked it into the future.
So we don't have any banked right now?
No, this is different than that.
Well, I mean, I don't want to vote against it actually, but you mentioned substantial need, and then we talk about rates going up everywhere. Are we forced to take the 3.484, or can we take 1%, or what's our options?
Well, there is a statutory amount that if the city, and I haven't looked at these statutes in a number of years, so this is off the top of my head, but if you did nothing and passed no ordinance, statutorily the assessor is going to set the minimum statutory levy rate for the city and collect that and tax the property value and send that money to the city, no matter what that is.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. What I was saying is the
Well, you asked me what your options
3.484.
were.
No, well,
But your option is to do nothing.
we don't
and if
have an
that's-
option to take that increase amount in there and make it whatever we wanted under the 3.484.
You could.
So that's an option.
You could say, I don't want to take the $81,000.
Or a portion less, even. We could take 1%.
That I don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
Because have certain outstanding obligations of the city, which the assessor, who is the county assessor, who acts as the assessor on behalf of the cities, is going to collect a property value levy rate to pay your basic costs of the city. So you can't bankrupt the city by legislative action, I guess, is simply put.
And we've put a budget together based on this 81,000 being in our.
You have, the budget is written for the 81,000, that is correct.
Could you continue your train of thought, which I appreciate, and I appreciate your interjecting to, which is, if we did nothing, what would the amount be that we would be getting?
I don't know that, and I haven't calculated it, but you would get it'd be a fairly large sum of money.
I mean, would it be 81,000 less if we didn't pass this, or would it be like maybe 11,000 less? Or
It would be $81,000 less.
okay, so we're talking about 81,000 by passing this.
The way this is structured and the way your 2016 budget is structured, I feel like I'm in the dark. The way it's structured, you're taking the $81,000 to balance your budget.
It's just this room.
Mark, do you have those keys?
Everyone turn on their phone. I have my flashlight.
We're not running? Nope. All right, our
Part of the city hall's on.
Well, our TVs.
Our lights are not running, but I'm still recording. Is now
Oh, you're still recording. Okay, good.
I wonder if you lost
So
it.
that's not a problem, just because we can't see.
Where's your
Now you
flashlight?
can make all the faces you want.
Finally.
Certainly isn't the first time we've been in the dark.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Martin, you were saying?
I was saying that the 2016 budget is structured for you to take the levy amount.
Other
And-
comments?
Well, I'll just say, since we're in the dark, that I appreciate what Councilwoman Lucarelli has said, because it seems like a very wrong time to be making onerous changes. However, from what I'm hearing from the discussion, it doesn't sound like this is that much more of a percentage change. We have the 1% bank or in our mind, and this is apparently not really what we're talking about in regard to that. So I will reluctantly support this.
Thank you.
Other comments? From the council? All right, then we are going to be, the motion for consideration, I move to adopt resolution setting the 2016 property tax levy and the amount of property taxes to be raised by the budget year 2016.
Like power, or is that like the generator?
I believe that's regular power. I don't think anybody went down and
Didn't turn on the
switched
generator.
generator on.
No, this is associated with the lighting system in the panel, so we're getting voltage spikes is what we're getting, even though, because we're on shore power right now, we're not on generator power, but the spikes are wreaking havoc with the lighting system. So I can't guarantee that we will have lights in 10 minutes.
So let's move right on. All those in favor of the motion I just read into the record, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
The record show that 2 stood in opposed, and that motion carries.
It's a good thing we didn't need to show of hands.
Business item 7F. Clerk Reinerson.
Yes. Penelope Sapp with Kitsap County has asked the city to support dedicating a portion of Highway 16 in honor of Trooper Tony Radulescu, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that name right, who was killed on February 23, 2012 on Highway 16 approximately at milepost 28. Trooper's death left everyone in Kitsap County shocked and saddened by the loss of someone who protected our community. On November 9, 2015, the Kitsap County Commissioners signed a resolution in support of dedicating a portion of Highway 16 to the trooper. And tonight I do have, I believe, Penny in the audience who would like to come up and read the resolution to the council.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm going to hurry up and talk before the lights go out. You are my last stop for this forage to get the Memorial Highway blessed by the Department of Transportation. I've asked the Board of County Commissioners to do so, is to pass this resolution, and now I'm asking you. I received lots of community support and support from senators, state representatives to get this Memorial Highway adopted. My plan is to get it starting from milepost 28 and going all the way to the county line, so stopping at Pierce County. So obviously it comes through Port Orchard, and I need your blessing so that this can become a reality. We lost Trooper Tony Radulescu almost 4 years ago. It was a terrible loss for us as law enforcement, but as the community as whole. We all feel the loss. So I'm going to read the resolution, and then my boss over there, Sheriff Simpson, would like to say something.
Thank you.
So, a resolution of the City of Port Orchard, Washington, in support of renaming a portion of State Highway 16 in South Kitsap, Trooper Tony Radulescu Memorial Highway. Whereas Washington State Trooper Tony Radulescu was hired by the Washington State Patrol in 1995 and was commissioned out of the 97th Trooper class on July 31st, 1996. And whereas Trooper Tony Radulescu received numerous awards for outstanding service and achievement during his career as a state trooper. And whereas on February 23, 2012, Trooper Tony Radulescu was killed during a traffic stop while on duty on State Highway 16 near Port Orchard, Washington, and left behind a son, partner, and many relatives, friends, and colleagues. And whereas RCW 47.01.420 allows state highways to be named or renamed by the Washington State Transportation Commission with a demonstration of community support of the proposal, and whereas renaming a portion of Highway 16 in honor of Trooper Tony Radulescu is a fitting tribute to a man who gave his life in service of the people of Kitsap County. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Port Orchard, Washington, hereby resolves as followed: that the Port Orchard City Council declares its support of the efforts to name a portion of the State Highway 16 to Trooper Tony Radulescu Memorial Highway in honor of the life and service of State Trooper Tony Radulescu. Sheriff Simpson.
Don't have to go anywhere. Gary Simpson, Sheriff for Kitsap County. Mayor, council members, thank you for adding this resolution or proposed resolution to your agenda today. This, as you can tell by Penny's reading, it's an emotional situation. Every time we read this, every time that we propose this ordinance or this resolution or discuss the loss of Tony, It brings back every memory of that day that all of us experienced who arrived at that scene. Penny is a corrections officer. She's a lieutenant with the Sheriff's Office Corrections Division. Her husband, Will, is a sergeant with our patrol division. And I believe Will was out at the scene that day as well. And many of our deputies were, as well as many of the Port Orchard police officers. I remember seeing many of them there that morning when I arrived myself, shortly thereafter, or after the murder. This was a coward who murdered a police officer. This is something that affects the entire fabric of our society. It affects our communities. It affects every law enforcement officer, whether they were a part of this situation or not. One thing that we haven't addressed that I think is extremely important to acknowledge is that while the public is asked to acknowledge and remember and honor Tony for the sacrifice that he made in his public service, we forget about the officers who have been left behind to deal with this issue on a day-to-day basis. Every day we go by that spot, we remember Tony. Every day that we drive by that spot while we're working, we recall that it could be us not going home that night. And so besides just the fact that the public acknowledged and honoring Tony in this way, it also is going to go very far for the healing process for all of the officers that knew Tony, that were a part of the investigation, and know that this could be the end of their service as well. So it goes a long way to heal the hurts and the harms that the law enforcement officers are still dealing with today because of this murder. So I strongly urge and request, as a citizen of Port Orchard, I hope that my council will approve this and honor Tony in this way. And thank you to Penny, who's done this all in her own time. This is not a sheriff's office initiative. This is one that she's taken on her own, and I think that needs to be acknowledged as well. And I beg for your mercy in approving this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Clausen.
It would be my honor to move to adopt the resolution dedicating a portion of Highway 16 to Trooper Tony Radulescu.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Open the floor for discussions or comments. Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion to approve the resolution dedicating a portion of Highway 16 to Trooper Tony Radulescu, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that that is a unanimous vote in favor of doing this. Thank you so much. Okay, we're at item 7G. Mr. Dorsey, could you tell us about this one, please?
Yes, Your Honor, council members, and before I read the summary and the agenda staff report, I have been in contact with Brianna Murray. She's desperately trying to get here by 8:20. I told her that I would go into my southern drawl on this one to slow it up. So during the second special session of 2013, the Washington State Legislature awarded $255,000 to the City of Port Orchard for the Projects for Jobs and Economic Development Program for the DeKalb Pier Phase 2 project. The Washington State Legislature then awarded an additional $500,000 to the City of Port Orchard for the 2015-2017 Biennium Direct Appropriation Grant as needed to fund the successful completion of the project. The Department of Commerce, being the contract administrator, will retain 3% of the grant awards to cover their administrative costs. Therefore, the city will receive a net grant award of $247,350 from contract number 1493222-001 and $485,000 from contract number CD 16-96503-001 for a grant award total of $732,350. The city's 2016 budget also includes an additional $82,650 from REIT to cover the anticipated total project cost of $815,000. As the environmental approval and ad-ready documentation updates were recently completed by the project consultant, P&D, contract award for the project is anticipated in February of 2016. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the mayor to execute contracts 084-15 and 085-15, thereby executing the Department of Commerce grant agreement number 1493222-001 in the amount of $247,350, and agreement number CD16 996503-003 in the amount of $485,000 for the completion of the DeKalb Pier Phase 2 project.
Yes.
I move to authorize the mayor to execute contracts number 084-15 and 085-15, thereby executing the Department of Commerce grant agreement number 14-93222-001 in the amount of $247,350, and agreement number CD 16-996503-003 in the amount of $485,000 for the completion of the DeKalb Pier Phase 2 project.
Second it.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Open the floor for discussion.
Now's a good time to ask lots of questions.
3 minutes worth?
Yeah, I can explain how the process will move forward if you'd like.
I would like a timeline on it.
Okay, so we received 2 grants, and because they came out of different budgets, that's why you have 2 separate contracts. We'll be administering 2 separate grants. Heidi will be having to juggle those 2 cats. As far as the timeline, as you recall, we authorized PND to update our environmental permits this year and to get the ad-ready documents revised for the Phase 2 specifically. That work is now accomplished. It is retroactive as far as reimbursement to this grant, so we'll be reimbursed for that activity. The intent is to go out to bid January, I think like 7th or 8th. We'll be receiving bids in the end of February, and by believe the end of February, we're looking to be under contract. If everything goes smoothly, we will then execute the contract notice to proceed and start the fabrication of the floats and the piling off-site. We were able to use that same process for the Bay Street pedestrian pathway and have that activity completed and floats and piling ready to ship before the July 16th construction window, because we can't do in-water work until then. So what will happen is they'll fabricate everything, and on July 16th they'll tear out the existing piling, existing floats, and the gangway, and start modifying the end of the current pier. And then when the piling come in for the catwalk, which is a 300-foot long by 6-foot wide pier extension to get us out to the deeper water, that work will be done first, and then they'll do the piling. They'll do probably all the piling at once, and then do the pier, and then they'll bring the floats in and hook it all together like a big erector set, and we should be done by this time next year. So that is the timeline.
Thank you.
And if Brianna isn't here, I would suggest, I don't think you have to do it as an amendment, but I think you could just have her item shift to after you talk about the council meeting minutes. And also, I don't know why you couldn't even just do your council reports and department head reports and everything. And if she's not here by then I told her I'd read it into the record.
Okay, any other comments, discussions? Okay, then, we'll be approving the contract with Washington State Department of Commerce for grants to complete DeKalb Street Pier Phase 2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Nobody says they don't want this to happen. So. Okay, good. And then we'll go ahead and did I understand we're just going to put 7H off? a little while. We'll
I
take
move
care
that we move 7-8 to until Brandy gets here.
Second.
Brianna, sorry.
Okay, motion and second to postpone dealing with 7H until later, till
Later in the meeting.
later in the meeting. Any other discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Yes, opposed, nay. That motion carries. Item 7I, and that's approval of November 10th council meeting minutes.
Mayor?
Yes.
I was not in attendance, so I'm going to recuse myself from voting.
The records show that Mr. Clausen recuses himself.
I would also like to recuse myself as I was not in attendance at that time.
Mr. Kuchardi recuses himself. What's your pleasure for those of you who are left standing?
I
Yes.
move to approve the council meeting minutes for the November 10th meeting.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any corrections or additions? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of November 10th, 2015 council meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And as we mentioned, there's two that are recusing themselves.
Recused or abstaining, one of the three.
Abstaining or recusing?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Abstain, okay. We're at the, now that motion was to continue 7H until the end of the meeting or until she shows up. Okay. Report of council, or am I getting ahead of myself? No, report of council committees, finance. Do you have anything for us tonight?
No, we discussed everything at the last work study.
Economic development at Ms. Ashby?
Have not had a meeting since our last council meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 14th, immediately following the Public Property Committee meeting.
Mr. Martin, I kind of skipped right over the 2016 budget hearing. Do you want to speak to that at all?
We'll have it on the 7th.
Exactly.
And then hopefully passage on the next night on December 8th.
Okay, thank you. Utility Sewer Advisory, Mr. Patonson.
The Utilities hasn't met and won't meet until 2016. Sewer Advisory Committee hasn't met, but will have its next meeting January 20th.
Okay, thank you. Public Property, any report from Ms. Ashby or Mr. Chang?
There will be a meeting on December 14th with our new chair.
Okay. Mr. Chang, Lodging Tax Advisory.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report. Festival of Chimes and Lights, Ms. Lucarelli.
Well, we're up and running. We're just about there. We have posters now. We have the flyers. The brochures are being distributed. It's December 5th, 11 o'clock to 7:30. It's going to be a fabulous event. We have more people actually involved this year than have been for quite some time. Lots of musical offerings, choirs. There's going to be some dance recitals. It goes on with lots of volunteers, lots of food, and a special thank you to Kitsap Bank for being our presenting sponsor this year. If you need a flyer, we also have the information posted on our website now with a direct link to go to the schedule of events. So we're moving forward, and thank you all for your participation.
Okay, thank you. We will have a work study session December 15th, right here at 7. We were just talking about you just a few minutes ago. So now that you're here, let's go back. Let's back up just a little bit to where am I now? There I am. I got lost again here.
7H.
Yes. 7H, approval of finalizing the 2016 legislative agenda. Please, tell us about this. Lead us into this, please.
Good evening. Brianna Murray with Gordon Thomas Honeywell Governmental Affairs, your contract lobbyist. First, thank you for your flexibility this evening with the schedule. I appreciate that very much, as I was double booked at multiple council meetings this evening. The 2016 legislative session is scheduled to start on January 11th. We held a work session with you to discuss your 2016 legislative priorities about a month ago. I received feedback from you and then produced the document that you have before you based on that feedback. Just want to recap sort of the three things specifically on transportation that we discussed at our work session. The first was an immediate request for the 2016 session to adjust the phasing of the Bay Street pedestrian path funding that we received in the Connecting Washington Transportation Package. You'll remember that the city received $3.5 million and that right now we're scheduled to not receive that $3.5 million till the very end of the 16-year package. Our request is to move $500,000 of that up to the 2017-19 biennium. That would build segment 3, so it would connect segments 2 and 4 and 5. So you'd have a full length there. And we've begun to make that request already with our legislators based on your resounding feedback at the last work session. The next item is Tremont funding. You've had this on your legislative agenda before. I want to be clear that I still continue to see very little opportunity to secure state funding for the project. What this item says is that we'll work with our state legislative delegation to get letters of support so we can secure funding in other transportation funding arenas like PSRC and grant programs and secure letters of support from them. And then the third transportation item is State Route 160 and exploring the next steps on how we can move forward in improving that corridor and working with the state. So those are the three new additions to your legislative agenda. The West Sound Alliance, infrastructure funding, and Public Records Act reform are all items that carry over from your previous agenda. So I guess my question and looking for direction from you all this evening is approval of this legislative agenda, that this would be my work plan and what I advocate for on behalf of you all this coming session.
All right, thank you.
Mayor,
Yes,
I
Mr.
move
Clausen.
to approve the city's 2016 legislative agenda.
Second.
Good, we have a motion and a second to approve the 2016 legislative agenda as presented. Open the floor for discussions, comments, or questions. Comments or questions from anyone? You've done a thorough job. There is none. Well, all right. We're going to be voting to approve finalizing the 2016 legislative agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously.
You came
Thank
all
you
the
so
way
much.
over for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I would just note that we have begun scheduling meetings with our legislative delegation. And there are 3 council members who have volunteered to participate in those meetings with me, and they are on the calendar. So we're moving forward. Thank you.
Good, thank you. All right, very good. Okay, we're now at the last item on our reports of council committees. Is there any outside agency committee reports?
The Kita fourth quarter meeting will be up at the Kitsap County Chambers, I think December 10th, and then there'll be a holiday party at Kitsap Bank starting at 5. And everyone is welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Even you, Sean.
Any other special agency, outside agency reports?
No, KRCC doesn't meet until December 1st.
Okay. I just have one announcement I'd like to read. I received it about 5 o'clock this afternoon. It's from Puget Sound Energy, and let me quickly just read it. We've opened our local storm base in Kitsap County to coordinate restoration efforts. As of 5 o'clock, approximately 50,000 customers are impacted. Most of those are in Kitsap County. Our crews will work through the night to restore power as conditions allow. Safety is, of course, our top priority. We have a wind advisory. This is the Weather Service at 6 o'clock this evening. It said, we have a wind advisory in effect until 6 o'clock Wednesday, indicating winds from 25 to 35 miles per hour with gusts from up to 50 miles per hour. Strongest winds are expected tonight. The storm is causing roads throughout Kitsap County to be closed, and as you would imagine, a lot of branches down over the power lines. So, due to below freezing temperatures also estimated for tonight, Kitsap County Department of Emergency Management has opened 2 shelters. Hours of operation of the shelters are 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. Guests are not able to check into the shelter after 9 p.m. So hopefully if you need shelter and be out of this cold weather, you need to get to these. One is in the Salvation Army on 6th Street in Bremerton. The other is Kingston Community Center in Kingston. And I would just like to compliment Brian McConaughey and all the folks from PS&E for the quick recovery they did the last storm. And they didn't get very much chance to rest because they're going to be doing it again, because apparently most of these 50,000 customers out of power tonight are in Kitsap County. So that was my report or announcement. It's not the best one that I could give you tonight, but we'll move on. Maybe Mr. Dorsey has something really exciting and fun to tell about.
No, actually I don't. I have more of a bookkeeping item. But okay. So for the SAC members, the January 20th meeting will have 2 items. One is the approval of the June 17th minutes and approval of the October 21st minutes. So I would love for the 22nd, I would love for John, Cindy, and Rob to be able to sign these. And for the 17th, I would love for John and Rob to sign these, but unfortunately you can't sign them until the 20th. The issue is going to be, will the SAC committee be the same for that first meeting, do you think? And then you'll change?
We usually address committees the first or second meeting in January, so maybe.
I have it scheduled for the first work study session in January. I think that's historically when
So
you
that'll
guys
be the
have-
Tuesday before the meeting. So if the SAC committee stays the same, it's not going to be an issue. But if it changes, then we'll have to
stay the same.
Yeah. So obviously it won't change. So what'll happen is we can have everybody but Councilman Patonsu sign, or who was on the committee, and then.
Well, he could sign afterwards.
I'm signing minutes for a meeting that I was a council member.
Yeah, he can sign.
Like the day after or something. Right. What I'm saying is I'm not going to be able to get him signed that night. I'll have to.
Why? I mean, assuming that the same characters, Rob would be in a different position, but if he shows up that night. And
Well, yeah, if you go to the
he
meeting.
can
If
sign
you're,
it as his.
yeah, I guess what I'm saying is if you go to the meeting, then we can do it. Otherwise, I'll have to get it the next day. So anyway.
I'll plan to.
Okay, thank you. And that's it.
Solve that dilemma for you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Mathis. Tomorrow morning at 8:30, we are scheduled for our Exodon audit with the Washington State Auditor's Office. They have concluded their 2014 audit, and we have noticed that for greater than 3 members. And I know that Councilwoman Ashby and Mr. Patonsu and Mr. Clausen are scheduled. Didn't hear back from Jerry, but you're welcome, of course, and we'll be here at 8:30.
I'll be there.
Thank you very much. And then I'll just want to say I don't know of any issues, and actually I feel like a room without a roof. So thank you.
Okay. Mr. Bond.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to have Brandy put up a draft letter to the Pierce County, or the Kitsap County Council, and I'm going to hand this out to you. At the last work study meeting, I was asked to draft a letter on behalf of the City Council, and I emailed this to the council members earlier today. This letter is concerning the environmental impact statement that was issued by the county on November 6th. And there's some language in red on the document, which is optional. You can, if the majority wants to strike it, they can strike it, or we can leave it in there. And I would just ask that if you can stick around for a few minutes tonight, once we decide what this says, I'll go print a final copy and have you sign it so that I can send it to the county tomorrow before we leave for the holiday. So the letter, and I'll go ahead and read it. This comment letter has been drafted on behalf of a majority of the Port Orchard City Council members in attendance at tonight's meeting, November 24th, 2015, in response to the draft supplemental environmental impact assessment issued by Kitsap County on November 6, 2015. The Port Orchard City Council held its first discussion of the DEIS at its November 15, 2015 work study meeting. The City Council was surprised to see that the draft supplemental EIS contained alternatives that significantly alter the urban growth boundary associated with the City of Port Orchard. While the City Council has held discussions previously concerning possible amendment to the UGA boundary, the Council has not requested any reduction to the UGA boundary surrounding the City of Port Orchard. The City Council and the City staff has not had sufficient time to review the 374-page plus 8 appendices November 6, 2015 DEIS and respectfully requests an extension of the comment period. The Port Orchard City Council respectfully requests that the public comment period on the draft EIS be extended for a period of 60 days until January 22, 2016. In the event the county is unable to provide the city with additional review time, the City Council must support Alternative 1, the no change alternative. And then the optional language of particular concern under Alternatives 2 and 3 are the removal of the commercial and mixed-use areas from the Port Orchard UGA and the subsequent downzoning within these areas. Respectfully, and then all of your signatures.
Okay, what's your pleasure?
I think it looks fine.
I agree.
Do you want it with or without the red sentence?
I don't see that would hurt keeping it, personally.
And is everybody here wanting to sign this tonight? Anybody?
I do. Sure.
Okay, I'll go print a copy of this, removing the red font and just turning it to black, and then I'll have you sign if you can stick around for a few minutes after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Morris. Oh, the Greinerson.
So I just wanted to update the council. I think you guys received emails regarding a Public Records Act or Public Records Request Survey. I am in the process of working on that. I believe it was request from the state auditor's office. So it's a lengthy survey. It's very detailed, asking the type of public records requests we get, the time spent, what type of staff. So I'm going to get that done here by next week. The deadline is December 8th, so I'll have it well before December 8th. And then once I have completed the survey, I will provide that survey to the full council. And then the other thing that I have is at the next meeting, which is December 8th, I will have on the agenda discussion for the Good Neighbor Awards. So if you guys want to think how you guys want to handle it this year, if you guys want to do a tour, kind of pick a date, that will be on, like I said, next council agenda. Other than that, that's all I have.
Mr. Mayor? I'm glad you raised that issue, Brandy, because it's something that, we always wait till sometime in December before we decide we're going to do something, and it really isn't adequate time to notify the citizens that we're going to do this again. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be advantageous to try to make that decision here tonight while we're waiting for the letter. And at least we can put some advance warning out to folks that if we do this, we're going to be out on such and such a time, and turn on your lights.
Yes.
I see a lot of nodding, so.
I think to get more interest in it, we should also give out a prize. Do we have any donated surplus goods that we can give out, or, like an old iPad or something?
You're looking at me?
Be a pickup truck?
Part of a what?
Pickup truck?
Pickup truck? That might be what do they call it? A gift of funds.
So with the iPad.
That's what they'd call it.
Are there any broken items we can give out?
Motivated.
Well, we typically give certificates.
Yeah, I think people want more.
How about a certificate for a Big Mac?
Is the second week in December too early? Is it? How about the third week in December?
I think it's too late, I think. There's too much going on.
Well, sometimes folks take a while to get their decorations up. That's why I ask if it's too early.
I guess my question is our December work study or our December 22nd council meeting, are both those agendas full?
The work study session, yes, and depending on the adoption of the budget, I think there's some documents that we can prepare in advance to make sure it's on the December 8th agenda. If we can get that resolved and adopted on the 8th, then possibly the 22nd might be an available date.
So you're saying if we get all of our work done, we could
We
have
might
that?
be able to play.
Well,
I think we had to pick a date that we know for sure and not make it dependent on something, because then we're going to be right back in the same boat of, well, we might be out in this date and we may not. How about the 16th of December, a Wednesday evening?
I don't have my Outlook calendar with me. So
I'm sorry?
I'm going to make whatever date
Yeah.
you guys pick. I don't have my Outlook calendar with me. So that's
Well, I'm proposing the 16th, so
I'm good with that.
December 16th?
December 16th, that's a Wednesday evening. It's the night after our council meeting.
So that we can be reminded.
Yeah, we can be reminded, but we can also let the world know that we're going to do
No,
it that
exactly.
evening. So
5:30? 6, the time?
30 is a good time to start. Fred, can you make 5:30?
I'm not back yet, but I can catch up maybe at 6 or 6:30.
What time would you be available? Could
6
you
would
make
be
6?
the earliest. Yeah. I can make
Does that work
6.
better for you too, Sean?
Yeah, 6 is good.
6?
Okay, let's do 6. 6 on the 16th.
And Councilmember Clausen, in the past, you've provided that transportation, I believe, or are we now using the city's vehicle? How would we like to provide that transportation that evening?
We'll figure it out, whatever we need, yeah.
Okay.
Kids. 16 passenger van.
To know how many are going to go, so
We'll let you know.
be out for the public as well.
Okay. Wanted to know.
So we can get that on our Facebook, let the citizens know, and we can share that out.
Set up.
That it?
That's all I had.
Okay. Mr. Chief Martai isn't here, so we'll move on to citizens' comments. Second, you were first. You were just a little bit first, but first.
I'll be short. Financially speaking, I would ask that you save your money on printing conserve water flyers. I would feel that an insult to raise my bill and then tell me it's because I'm wasting water. I've been raised 77 years being told, turn off the faucet. If you're not going to drink it, don't fix it. I raised 2 children. You can't run the water hose out in the yard the whole time you're playing. We know how to conserve water. I mean, I'm a low consumption user. Most of us are. But don't send me another pictured flyer telling me how to save money on my water bill when you've just hyped it up on me. Please.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk about the parking permits. Something that you didn't appear to consider is that because you have a parking permit doesn't mean that your car is parked on the street. It just means when you have a gas line put in because you're getting a new furnace and they're needing to get in your back driveway, that you have the ability to park that car on the street for over 4 hours while they're putting in the line for your gas line. Or other instances, I keep my truck on the street, but when I'm using the truck and loading up the stuff that I cart down to our place in Shelton, then I move the car down on the street. So it's kind of a rotation. And I don't think that just because a person has 4 or 5 parking permits, it's just they have each car covered so that it doesn't get ticketed in case they have to park it on the street. Just something for your info, because not everybody keeps it on the street all the time, but it keeps you from getting a ticket.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Last chance for tonight. All right. Then we have no executive session that I'm aware of. And so if there isn't anything for the good of the order, I'll ask that question. If not, then we stand adjourned. Thank you.